Hello, I'm Dr. Jianing Chen from BNU HKBU UIC, Beijing Normal University, Hong Kong Baptist University, United International College. I worked at CCGC program, Department of Communication, FHSS. I'm going to give you a course called Studies of Contemporary Chinese Linguistics. Here is the first chapter. It's an introductory chapter. Okay, here is the outline of this chapter. First, we will define linguistics, language, and philology. And then, Chinese linguistics. I'm going to also talk about the difference between Chinese linguistics and philology. It is also very important to talk about the stages of Chinese language evolution in history. Finally, I'll talk about language and Chinese dialects in contemporary China. Okay, first, we will define linguistics. There are many definitions about linguistics according to different dictionaries. For example, according to Britannica, linguistics refers to the scientific study of language, which is very simple, very brief, very general. According to Oxford Dictionary, linguistics refers to the scientific study of language and its structure. So we know that structure of language is also very important. And finally, according to Merriam-Webster, linguistics refers to the study of human speech, the oral form of language, including the units, nature, structure, and modification of language. Modification here mainly refers to the change of language. Okay, we know that we need to also define language first before study of language. According to Britannica, language refers to a system of conventional spoken, manual, or written symbols by means of which human beings, as members of a social group and participate in its culture, express themselves. So language is something used by a group of people. Those peoples consist of the same ethnicity in most cases. And they are conventionally formed and also changed through history. Okay, similarly important, philology is a very significant term we need to discuss. According to Britannica, the definition of philology is the study of history of language, including the historical study of literary texts. So it's something very similar to linguistics, but it studied language in history. Mainly depends on the ancient texts, the old form. According to Merriam-Webster, philology refers to the study of human speech, especially as a vehicle of literature. Literature here refers to the texts, old texts, and as a field of study that shed light on cultural history. That means if you want to study a cultural history of some ethnics, it is very important, to some extent, necessary to make use of the literature, which is a philology. Okay, according to above definitions, we know that linguistics is something related to language. So Chinese linguistics is a scientific study of Chinese language. We know that if we use China here in a in a political sense, there must be many different languages in China besides ethnic Han, the language of ethnic Han. But here, in this course, we mainly use the Chinese language or Chinese linguistics in a narrow form. We refer to the Chinese language as the Han, the language of Han people. The language or text of Han people are also very complex. It has very much different form, and it uses different terms to discuss, even in history. For example, in Old Chinese texts, the terms includes 语、言、文、字、词、名、韵、音, and so on and so forth. Respectively, they can be translated into language, speech, text, character, word, name, rhyme, and so on. They are not definite definition of each term. That means in different contexts, some terms can be used differently, can mean differently. Personally, I'm going to talk about the awareness and elucidation of linguistic problem of some ancient Chinese scholars, especially Confucius scholars in early China. That is the different understanding of old Chinese scholars of language. For example, in the Analects of Confucius, there are very popular sentences such as 名不正则言不顺. If names are not correct, language is not in accordance with the truth of things. 名 here is a very important term. It means name or terms. 言 here means language, used as a verb, as a noun, sorry. Another sentence by Confucius, 故君子明之必可言也，言之必可行也. A superior man considers it necessary the names he used may be spoken appropriately. 名 name, 言 be spoken, and what he speaks may be carried out properly. 言 speaks. Here 言 used as the verb. 君子于其言无所苟而已矣. What a superior man requires is just that in his words there may be nothing incorrect. Here this 言 is used as a noun. According to another philosopher, Confucius philosopher Xunzi, in his very famous chapter, 正名, correct naming, he says that 名无故矣，约之以命，约定俗成谓之宜，意于约则谓之不宜. 名 here means name or words, have no intrinsic correctness, 宜 a proper or correct. 约之以命, the correctness is established by convention, by common agreement among different people speak the same language. When the convention is established and the custom forms, the names are then correct. So convention or custom are very important for the language. If there are different form of convention, they are then incorrect. So the correctness is not defined by individual. They are defined by a group of people, by their convention. This is a very important feature of language. And Xunzi knows that. Okay, after those early Chinese philosophers, we will have a glance of traditional Chinese philology. As I said, philology is the ancient form, early form of Chinese language study, which is different from contemporary Chinese linguistics. Okay, I'm going to introduce different dictionaries in early Chinese period. The first one is called Ya. What's the meaning of Ya? Er means closing, Ya means form, standard. So Ya tells you which is the proper form to speak, to use different words. So Ya mainly is a dictionary about synonym, studies historical semantics. Here's the first page. The left page is the picture is the first page of Ya. Let's read the first sentence. 出哉守机赵祖元台出落全于时也. Oh, here lists a group of synonyms. Those different words means the same. 时也, the beginning. All of these words means beginning. Ya was written during the Warring State period through the Western Han, early Han. We don't know the definite period when it was formed. And we don't know also the author of this dictionary. In former Han Dynasty, a famous scholar called Yang Xiong wrote a dictionary called 游宣使者绝代语式别国方言. Obviously, it's about dialect. It's talk about dialectology or historical semantics. Read the first sentence of this dictionary. 党小者知也. So this group of synonyms means the same, 知, know, to know. But they were used in different regions. For example, 楚谓之党. In the state of Chu, it's called 党. 贺越小, 齐宋之间谓之者. In the states of Qi and Song, they use another term, another form of this word. And in the later Han Dynasty, Xu Shen wrote a book, Shuowen Jiezi. Here, Yan, Wen, Zi, Ming, or they are, as we mentioned, they are very important terms in Chinese philology. Okay, Shuowen Jiezi mainly studied the character, the particular form of Chinese writing. So it's about grammatology or paleography. Here is the first page of Shuowen Jiezi. The first entry is the illustration, the explanation of the character E1. And then later, a dictionary written by Liu Xi named Shi Ming, the illustration of names. So it's about etymology or historical semantics relating to their history, origin of different terms. Let's read the first sentence. 天欲思言记以舌腹言之天显也. That means Liu Xi here explained the reason, the origin why 天 pronounced as 天. And 天 pronounced as 天 here, as 咸 here in Yuzhou, the state of Yu, Silizhou, Yanzhou, Jizhou. In this region, such regions, 天 pronounced like this because they used the 舌腹, the body of tongue, and differently, 清徐以舌头言之. In the state of Qing and Xu, people there pronounce such words, use the tip of the tongue. 天元也. So there are different pronunciation and of the same word, and they changed in history. Liu Xi here illustrate the reason and the situation of the change. Okay, later, during the Sui Dynasty, a famous scholar, Lu Fayan, wrote a book, a dictionary, a rhyming dictionary called Qie Yun. And later, in Northern Song Dynasty, Chen Pengnian and others composed Guangyun. And similarly, during the Yuan Dynasty, Zhou Deqing composed Zhongyuan Yinyun. They are all about rhyme, So this group of dictionaries are related to the historical philology. Here is the first page of Guangyun. We can learn a little bit about the structure of this chapter. For example, notice here is a small circle. Before this small circle, there are a group of characters pronounced the same. In other words, in the rhyming dictionary, the author arranged the structure in this way. Arrange the words, the characters with the same pronunciation together. For example, dong and different dong, they pronounce the same. And tong, different tong, pronounce the same. They are arranged closely. What's the reason of such arrangement? This is something related to the purpose of such dictionary, rhyming books, rhyming dictionaries. One of the important purposes is to compose the poem. When you compose poem, you need to know the rhyme, particularly using the last character of a sentence. So scholars or the poets usually use such dictionary to compose poem and check out the meaning of each word. What's the use of such dictionary words nowadays? Modern scholars or even ancient scholars use such dictionaries to reconstruct the pronunciation or the structure of Old Chinese language. We call that historical phonology. Historical phonology is a very important part of philology. Study the pronunciation or the structure of a pronunciation of particular language in history. For example, according to some study, here is the 36 consonants of the pronunciation of Guangyun. That means there are about 36 consonants in the way that people pronounce all the syllables in Guangyun. Remember this chart. I will talk about it later. You can notice that the consonants can be divided into different groups. Clearly, they are almost evenly distributed in such columns. For example, 全清, 次清, 全浊, 次浊. So, what's the meaning of that? 全清 here means unaspirated consonant. 次清 means aspirated. Aspiration are the different between them. And 全浊 means voiced. 次浊 means nasal and other lateral consonants. Okay, so we can summarize here. What's the difference between Chinese linguistics and philology? Philology is the historical version of study of language in history. Chinese philology usually refers to two aspects, which includes 小学 and 文献学. What is 小学? 小学 is not primary school, okay? It's a study of language. Okay? It also includes historical philology, 音韵 or 文字, can be translated into grammatology, orthography, or paleography in contemporary context. And also 训诂. What is 训诂? 训诂is explanation of the meaning, commentariology, or hermeneutics, or historical semantics. They are all related to language study, okay, but in traditional form. And 文献学 literature refers to the study of textual criticism, 教刊 bibliography, 目录, and even study of addition, 版本. Okay, they are something related to Chinese philology. Differently, Chinese linguistics is something in a modern perspective. It includes the study of phonetics, phonology. These two fields are related with each other. We can say that phonetics is the basis of a study of phonology. Phonetics study the pronunciation of human language in general. Phonology studies the structure of a human language structure of a particular group of people. Morphology, syntax, acquisition, teaching and learning about language. Semantics, cognition, and also social linguistics and another variants of a language, dialectology. So here are the main parts. On this page is the main part of this course, which is different from the ancient parts of the language study. Okay, why do we observe Chinese language in this way? We need to mention a very famous, very important scholar, linguist. His name is Ferdinand de Saussure, who was a Swiss linguist and philosopher. His ideas laid a foundation for many significant developments in linguistics in the 20th century. And he also was widely considered one of the founders of modern linguistics. What's the major achievements of Saussure? He distinguished language in two perspectives. For example, he distinguished language. One is the language in general. It's called langue. And then the language in practice use, which was called parole. According to the Saussure, language can also be studied synchronically or diachronically. Look at this illustration. What's the difference between synchronic study and diachronic study of language? Synchronic means at the same time. So synchronic linguistics take the way that to observe the language as a stable status. To imagine the language do not change in a particular period, and then study the structure of language of this period. Differently, diachronic or historical linguistics observed language as a process of changing in history. So if you understand the meaning of this differentiation, you will know that synchronic linguistics is something more related to modern linguistics, especially structural linguistics. Because if you want to study the structure of a language, you are not able to suppose the language is still changing. Okay, if the language changed, you cannot study the structure of it, right? So imagine the language do not change now, and then study the structure. But diachronic linguistics is something like more like the philology. Okay, holding such ideas, I'm going to ask you a question. Is it possible to study Middle or Old Chinese linguistics instead of philology, and why? So what is Middle Chinese linguistics, or what is Old Chinese linguistics? Middle Chinese means the Chinese language in the history of Middle Ages. Usually refers to for example, the 6 dynasties, Liu Chao, and through the Tang Dynasty. I'm going to talk about it in detail later. And Old Chinese usually refers to the Chinese language in early stages. For example, before the Qin and Han dynasties. So can we study such materials of language linguistically? This is my question. Consider it. If you can properly answer this question, that means you know the difference between linguistics and philology. Okay, now I'm going to discuss the stages of Chinese language in history. We can divide Chinese language chronologically into these hypotheses. The first is the ancestor of Chinese language. You know, Chinese language take the name of China after the Han Dynasty, Hanyu, after the Han Dynasty. Okay, that means there's no such term of Hanyu before the Han Dynasty, right? In English terms, there's no Chinese language before the formation of or idea of China or Chinese, right? So before the written form, before the written texts, before any evidence we can find, okay? There's a period in history, very early period, that Chinese language even do not or only just be separated from other languages in the Sino-Tibetan families. In this period, we call that Proto-Semitic or Proto-Chinese. Is the period referred to the early stage of Chinese language evolution until the 13th century BCE. Why until the 13th century BCE? Because that was the time when the written form, the earliest written form of Chinese language appeared, which was a OBS, Oracle-Bone script. That means during the period of Proto-Phonetics, there's no text to study. So this must be the most important and most difficult period that we study language. And later, we use the term Old Chinese to refer to the early period of Chinese history, including the Shang, the later Shang, especially Zhou, Qin, and Han dynasties. We have more and more texts during this period. We can use them philologically to study Chinese language. And Middle Chinese, as I mentioned, refers to the period from 6 dynasties through Tang Dynasty. And later we use the term modern Chinese. In Chinese we call it 近代汉语, modern Chinese, okay, to refer to the period of Chinese language since 5 dynasties through Ming. And contemporary Chinese. Some scholars use this term to refer to the language after the Qing Dynasty till now. But some other scholars refuse to use this term. In English context, some scholars only use the modern Chinese. In Chinese context, 现代汉语. Okay, but in my opinion, 现代汉语 can be translated into contemporary Chinese, which is different from 近代汉语, modern Chinese.